I thought we decided to do something also a little bit different this morning. I thought it would be really great to sit down with our newest board member. We at HasOffers has been bootstrapped until recently. We bootstrapped up to 80 employees and profitably from there. And we really start to see this inflection point in the industry where we could become a standard and could really move into a strategic position, and decided the right partner might really help us move there. And so I spent some time looking for that right partner, and if any of you have done that before, you know that can be a pretty intense process. Lots of interesting cats out there. And I have to say that coming to the close of it, we met someone that really blew us away. Rich Wong of Excel Partners is a phenomenal investor in especially the mobile space. He's investing aggressively behind it. He was active in AdMob and is active in MoPub, Angry Birds. Excel's invested in Supercell, Kayak, Hotel Tonight, Trulia. It's just kind of wild. When I first spoke to Rich, I think he kind of like sent the go button on, does this software actually work, out to their army of people, and it was like, they got a resounding yes back, but he was able to do diligence like so quickly. It kind of blew me away. We were looking for someone that would really challenge us, someone that would come with their own energy and passion and excitement to the table. We're all pretty intense guys, and if you're going to sit down with me and Lucas and Lee, we needed somebody that could balance with us and would never just kind of lie down and sit there. And I really think we found that in Rich, and I'm so excited to bring him up here. We're going to have a little fireside chat. Say a big welcome to Rich Wong. I thought we'd kind of start off with, how have you seen the advertising landscape really change over the last 10 years?
Sure, just maybe a couple comments, just opening comments.
Sure,
to say, first of all, I just want to say thank you again to the HasOffers team, to Peter, to Lucas and Lee for letting us be a small part of what I think is the very beginning, and it's going to be an incredible journey forward. And it gave me so much excitement and confidence to see all the partners and customers that came. So as one small part of the HasOffers team, thank all of you guys, and really appreciate being here. To your specific question, I'll get to that.
Sure.
I think the reality is, as a venture capitalist, every once in a while, you get to find a couple of fundamental secular trends that are happening, and you get to be lucky enough to be able to ride and surf those waves and benefit from the energy that's being created in an ecosystem. And I think what, for me, was so exciting about the HasOffers investment is it is actually the confluence of two critical waves. One being, of course, the shift from desktop to different forms of post-PC era mobile devices, and the second being the shift from display to what I believe is measured and programmatic advertising. I started out my career selling toilet paper. This is true. I was the brand manager of Charmin at Procter & Gamble when I first started out.
So soft.
Exactly. I wasn't responsible for killing Mr. Whipple. Mr. Whipple was shot before my time. But back in those days, we spent $80 million a year of advertising, and we had no idea kind of what happened to it. Recall. It's not like people needed to be educated about the category, right? I think people understood what it was. It was good that people understood and recalled the brand over Kleenex or over AngelSoft or all the other folks, but it was a world where marketing and spending essentially had no direct correlation to impact. And I think when you think about the roughly 20 years that's happened from that period to where we are now, what's amazing is that we're only about 10% of the way there. Obviously Google has benefited a lot from that type of measured media. You look at Facebook, a lot of people have benefited from it, but we're only at the real beginning of moving dollars across. At the cocktail party yesterday, a friend of mine is a guy named Cole Brodman, who lives here in the area, who is the former CMO of T-Mobile. T-Mobile spends $500 million a year in advertising on customer acquisition.
$500 million.
And 90% of it's still on TV and not measured. That money, whether it's T-Mobile's or all the other brand dollars that are out there, are making a secular shift to the world that we live in, and it's really, really exciting to be here in the early stage. So I think fundamentally, I believe from desktop to mobile, from non-measured display towards programmatic. Display's not going away, but I think programmatic measured performance is going to expand dramatically, and obviously we are really excited to be working with you for those reasons.
Yeah, are you seeing the VC community in general kind of circle around that a bit, or where are you seeing the advertising investments happening?
The venture capital industry behaves like lemmings a lot of the time, first of all, and I would not say is a great leading indicator, at least the conventional wisdom of where the future is necessarily going to be. I would say, many of you that have tried to fundraise recently would probably realize that the VC community at the moment has sort of a confused opinion about ad tech when they talk about it. There's sort of this belief for the moment that between Google and maybe Twitter and maybe Facebook and then more brands that are in transition like Yahoo and AOL, that right now, quote, seems crowded. And maybe that's true in certain segments of it, but as always, being, a great entrepreneur or perhaps investor is about finding the sub-pockets where there is a lot of action, where there's a lot of change. And I happen to think this category, for exactly the reasons I described on mobile and programmatic, is one of those. So I think it's a very chaotic picture in venture capital right now around advertising. That the hypotheses are kind of muddled, if I were to be honest.
So who do you see as the really the biggest players moving forward from an advertising perspective? I mean,
well, I think it's hard to ignore this week the Facebook earnings results, right? And particularly those of us that think about mobile in particular quite a bit. At 41% of the revenues or ad revenues coming from mobile, it looks like it's going to cross over that 50-50 mark either this coming quarter or the quarter after that. And that's a pretty amazing thing when they really did not start in mobile at all until about 5 quarters ago, right? I think you see Twitter kind of getting ready. I'm really looking forward to the panel after this because I really can't wait to ask some questions about where LinkedIn's going, where's Twitter going, where's Facebook going, in terms of how aggressive they're going into the space. And so I think there are going to be a number of real kind of anchor tenants in the mall of some of those big companies.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think about LinkedIn and Twitter specifically? I mean, do you see that there are lots of players that are wanting to participate there? Are you seeing a lot of dollars you think will flow right into that, or what are your senses telling you?
I think the really great news for most of us in this room that are not at those big companies is that many of those larger incumbents are behaving like platforms and not necessarily like vertically integrated players, right? So when you have an ecosystem, say over in the mobile world that looks like Apple, where they kind of want to do everything, kind of doesn't leave as much room for other players to be part of the ecosystem since they're so vertical in their thinking. A lot of these other next generation players that we were just describing, they seem to want to do their layer, which has APIs going kind of up northbound and southbound to allow other people to intermediate. And I think that's a really healthy thing for the entrepreneurial ecosystem and certainly for venture capital when you have someone that wants to partner kind of up and down.
So what are your thoughts about these new arriving technologies like the wearables, the direction TV is going and that sort of thing? I mean, do you think this is going to really move quickly and we're going to see advertising models adapt quickly, or do you think it's just going to be another one of like, this is the year of TV, no, this is the year of TV, no, this is, what are you saying?
So was anybody actually put on a Google Glass here? Raise your hand. Huh, it's a geeky crowd, definitely. Okay, got it.
No one's wearing one right now, though, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, we'd have at least 10.
God knows I've been wrong a lot of times in making predictions, but I went to the sort of the ultimate geek school, right? MIT. I went to school in the early '90s, and back then the Media Lab had already this Oculus thing with some guys walking around with what looked like a laptop, kind of on their backpack with this, essentially the early prototypes of Google Glass. And I think now kind of what I thought then, which is what a goober. I mean, I can't believe this guy's walking around campuses. What's he doing, right? Now maybe I'm just old now and I'm not with it enough, and I don't like, understand what looks cool anymore. I'm sure all that.
You're with it.
Thank you. It was all just to get Peter to say that. No, I just, maybe I would just simply say I think it's going to take a while for consumer behavior and consumer acceptance to change, to get really everybody comfortable wearing that Oculus thing, and so it's not that it won't ever happen. I'm sure it probably will. I just don't think it's going to happen super quick, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be building a startup company right now that it plans for revenues at the end of this year with the assumption there's going to be a lot of footprint out there, right, for glass. So I guess I'm open-minded long-term. I'm, as an investor, relatively skeptical short-term because the device footprint is not really there. I think television is actually quite fascinating, actually. I mean, obviously, it's where the bulk of spend has historically been, and we're all attacking it, right? It's been easier to go attack the newspapers, the municipal newspapers first in that ad budget. But I think, that all of those, Wi-Fi is becoming ubiquitous in homes. A lot of the Samsung TVs that certainly I have around my house are Wi-Fi connected. And now there are ways to actually connect that broadcast world to, this group's more digital approach and more interactive internet-based approach. And so I think there's going to be a ton of disruption around next-gen television targeting and advertising.
Yeah, I really agree. I mean, we think about the native experiences already happening on the television. We can obviously track and measure those things similarly that we do on, sorry guys, I had a late night. Similarly as we do on mobile devices. So I think that we might see some transference happen there much more quickly than we all expect. The last question I just wanted to ask is kind of more broadly talking about Excel in particular and your investments. Maybe number one, what percentage of your technology investments are in mobile now? Maybe sort of in the last year compared to like your total, investments in technology.
It's definitely growing. I would estimate, if I had to define it broadly, of things that really touch the mobile ecosystem, all the way from carrier technology and distributed antenna systems and such, all the way to mobile advertising and applications like Hotel Tonight or Supercell. It's probably about a third, I would say, but I'd say it's up from 15% or 10% back 3-4 years ago. As many of you know, we've kind of gone through a transition where investing in mobile used to be about selling stuff to telcos, which for any of you that have experienced it, it's not something you really want to remember. It's a pretty painful, super long sales cycle, political sale, many pocket vetoes. And so the industry was kind of stuck in a really low innovation rate for a long period of time. And then with the statement of the obvious around Android and the launch of the iPhone, obviously it's opened things up to what I call off-deck or open mobile, where you're not reliant on some gatekeeper to slow down all the decisions. And so as a result, you see what we're all here doing today, right, which is a much, much faster pace of innovation in the mobile industry. And so that's why our investing is accelerating.
And what would you say that you're really looking for as you're investing in new companies in that category?
I would say, I know this sounds a little, maybe it is cliched, but it is also an element of truth in it, is that the honest truth is we look for authentic entrepreneurs more than the specific idea, right? I mean, you remember when we first met and when I first sit down with Lucas and Lee, and a lot of it's trying to figure out, these guys really know what they're talking about, and is there a problem they're solving really real? When they make assertions and say, yes, Hotel Tonight is a loyal customer, and I'm eye-patting Adam, do you know these guys, and do you really think they're any good? Literally, I think Adam Grenier is speaking later today. It's the validation of, do people fundamentally know what they're talking about? Is it a big enough space? And are they credible in their assertions? I know that sounds incredibly generic, but that literally is what we look for. It's not the big animal pictures of, what is your TAM? And describe to me your technical competitive advantage. I mean, most of that stuff is BS anyways. It's hard to predict a few years in advance what those things are going to be.
Well, I want to go ahead and just open up to the audience for a minute. Questions for Rich Wong?
I'm Jeff Barber with Solom Consulting. I'm curious to hear your view of what you talked about, the trends of desktop to mobile and display to automated advertising. On the front end of that, what are the content and e-commerce trends that you see that would be driving that new breed of automated advertising?
What are the media trends you're saying?
You know, from if you're in a content business or an e-commerce business, what are the trends that would cause you to want to adopt those kind of technologies?
So a couple things there. I think the first is the nature of how content businesses are changing. Let me start with that. Let me parse it into a couple questions. So we happen to be, I don't know if any of you guys have ever read SB Nation or the blog The Verge, or the guys at SB Nation are a collection of local sports blogs that came together. It happens to be one of the media companies we invest in. And I think, you know, the old world model, I think, of the Associated Press working on timelines of 24 hours and having sort of one story that is then syndicated to municipal newspapers around the country, that sort of 24-hour, one voice for the country, that is a very, that's an outdated model, I think, right? So I think what you're seeing is, as we all know from blogging, and whether it's TechCrunch or GeekWire or all the different blogs that we read, it's instantaneous feedback, right? I'm afraid people are posting tweets of stuff I'm saying right now and disagreeing with some of it online even before I get off this microphone. So I think that speed of response, that speed of iteration is here to stay. And I think as part of that, people are looking for authentic local voices that are relevant to them, that speak to their specific tribe or community, versus sort of one Walter Cronkite to tell everybody else, tell everybody in the country kind of what they should be looking at. So I think, you know, there's this, you know, this sub-segmentation and speed change that's happening from a media perspective. And you see a lot of the old line media companies really, really struggling with it, which is why very few of us read, you know, Wall Street Journal exclusively for business news anymore. We read TechCrunch, we read Business Insider, we read Pando Daily, we read Huffington Post, we read The Verge. And I think that the advertising will follow. I think I answered your question.
Hey, Rich. I was just wondering, so it seems like every popular app now has a valuation of $1 billion or more, like Fab or Snapchat.
Only when we sell. When we invest, of course, that's not the case. We hope.
I was just curious if you thought the valuations had gotten ahead of themselves for these apps, or will these apps grow into these valuations?
Well, in the case of HasOffers, it'll more than exceed, of course. But okay, past the paid political advertisement. You know, I think the one that people look at the most is Instagram, right? And at the time, it looked crazy, right? It's called what it is. People are like, oh, you know, they're about to go IPO, and $1 billion, really? You know, and I admit, you know, I was thinking to myself, I was at some panel that day, and I think that's twice of what the New York Times is worth at the moment, as I believe. And so, you know, especially some of the reporters are asking me questions and saying, this is crazy, right? I mean, I work at the New York Times, and it's worth twice my entire company. Well, when you look back now, I think Mark was pretty prescient, I think, in terms of thinking about youth adoption and how user behavior might change. And when I talk to my nieces and nephews, you know, I think they're using Snapchat and Instagram far more aggressively than they use, you know, Facebook today. So it's a classic example of someone who had the guts to address the so-called innovator's dilemma challenge, to optically overpay for a trend that wasn't obvious until 2 years later. So that said, it was a pretty high price for something that had basically no revenue. I think in answer to the other question, I think mileage will vary, right? You know, when Excel invested in Facebook at a little over $100 million, we were broadly panned as crazily overpaying, right? This is right after Friendster, Plaxo, LinkedIn at the time looked pretty messed up. And so sort of social was screwed up. It was sort of the conventional wisdom around Silicon Valley VC at the time, and obviously we're pretty fortunate that we plunged in. So I think, you know, I've stopped criticizing other VCs when they do high-value investments, because sometimes they work out.
Hi, Buzz Bargerman, ActiveWords. 2 questions. One, I bought a Chromecast, $35 device 2 days ago, and I'd like to have your thoughts on it, because it seems to me it puts a lot of power into
Does it work?
Haven't gotten it yet. It's coming from Amazon, so I'm told. The second question is, as an aging baby boomer, my people control 78% of the wealth in America, yet I don't see any of these companies thinking about that.
On the first thing, I bought it too, actually, on the flight up. I bought it off, isn't Wi-Fi a beautiful thing on Virgin America? So I bought it on the flight up. I'm going to install it this weekend myself, assuming I get it, and we'll find out. I think it is a good example of what, Peter and I were talking about related to the disruption of TV. I think it's a classic example of the disruption of TV. Those of you that have Apple TV boxes at home, and between TiVo and Apple TV, I don't watch live TV at all anymore, right? House of Cards or Mad Men or whatever, I watch it all off that Apple TV box, and I think this is a transformative aspect of how TV is going to be disrupted. In answer to your second question, I don't, with all due respect, I don't know if the premise is true. Like we all care about multiple ranges of demographics, right? I can't remember what the sociologists say exactly is baby boomer now, but I think certainly, 30 through 49, maybe that's just pre-baby boom, is certainly a targeted demographic, as all advertisers know. And for certain types of luxury automobiles and other, there's a lot more experts in this crowd than I on specific CPMs or CPCs against demos. But I think there very much are companies that are targeting that demo, in my opinion.
Hey, Rich. My name is Pat Murphy. Nice to meet you. Two questions. For those entrepreneurs in the group that are aspire for future funding events, although you don't see a mad rush by the VC community to go after deals in this particular sector at this time, if that were to happen, where do you see the deals happening initially? What types of deals? Pure technology plays, service plays, gaming? And then the second question is, generally, what is the valuation model that you see being applied to those deals?
Sure, let me answer the second one first, and then I'll come back to the other one. So I'm happy to talk offline to anyone who wants to discuss it. It's a classic supply and demand, so having rules of thumb are not easiest, but I'll try to give you some general guidance. If you're a Series A investor and you are likely to spend 6, 7, 10 years working with the company and sitting on the board, you only have so much time, so you really want to own 20 to 30% of a company. So what you try to get to in a Series A. Now, you can't always get there. Sometimes when you co-incubate, sometimes you actually own more. It's fairly public. If we only owned 11% of Facebook, even at that first investment. So sometimes for companies you really want to get into, you own less. But sort of nominally 20 to 30 is what you're trying to get to. But the mileage can vary greatly depending on who you are, your stage, what success. Is it a PowerPoint, or do you have actual customers, et cetera, right? On the first question, I think other than the statement of the obvious around the degree that there's momentum, great. To the degree that there's a problem that's easily understandable, that is clear that you're solving, that's great. But the one thing that's not totally clear, I think, when you come at it from the other side is we as venture capitalists look for distinctiveness. Why is it, are you the only one, or at least the clear leader, or are you one of 7 or 8 other people, even if it's a good space? And the reason why is partially because if it's competitive, you have price commoditization, and the numbers won't look as good 5 years from now because there's so many people going after it. But part of it also is just that a distinctive company has also strategic value because it's an asset likely that other people will want to buy. And then when it's time for the company to be acquired, whether it's public or private at that time, there's just going to be fewer to choose from, so the bid prices will go higher. So searching for distinctiveness is one of the things that's worth thinking about. Now, you can over-theorize it, but it's at least it's a variable we look for.
I think, we'll finish up just with one last question.
I have a question for the crowd, if you don't mind, Peter.
Sure, go for it, yeah.
How many people know, and if you're a HasOffers employee, you cannot raise your hand, what Peter's profession was technically before the gentleman from the baby boom? Say that again? Opera singer, I heard that as well. Isn't that a pretty cool profession? Now, I believe it would be appropriate, given all these great customers and partners here in this crowd. I'm going to turn off my microphone.
I didn't think it would be you that betrayed me. I didn't think it would be you.
Only in public on stage, right? So I think I'm going to turn off my microphone now because I don't want any reverberation to go back into this area. Mr. Hamilton.
Something very short.
distinctiveness.
I think we'll finish it there. Thank you all very much.